Chapter 7. Step 2. Create the strategy. It is a bad plan that admits no modify cation. Publius Cyrus, Maxims, Phi Rst Century BC. Step 1 sets a goal. That identify what is to be done and points to the necessary strategy, how to do it. When turnaround is imperative, simplify cation is the strategy. Company-wide, this means using the 80/20 principle to identify what is working and what is not working so that management can move resources from what is not working to what is. Step 2 is to create the strategy that will position the company to earn the right to grow. 100-day turnaround timeline goes by fast, so speed is of the essence. The sooner the course correction is implemented, the sooner the cash flow bleeding will stop. Don't expect the draft of the strategy produced in the span of Step 2 to guide the company for all time. You just need it to propel the business to Step 3, in which the executive and operational leadership put some meat on the strategic bones and gives the business a new structure going forward, one that will enable, facilitate, and accelerate optimum focus on customer base and product offering to drive profitable growth. Step 2 does not promise perfection, just progress. The strategy that emerges from Step 2 is intended to be modified going forward in response to the changing demands of reality. Like Steps 1 and 3, Step 2 is a step toward lifting the organization to Step 4, an action plan. Schedule the Step 2 strategy meeting within 30 days of the Step 1 goal meeting. Use the 80/20 principle to identify the roughly 20% of what you are doing in your business that is producing 80% of your revenue. Knowing this enables you to speedily separate what is working from what is not. You will want to gather your company's product and customer data immediately. Data alone will not tell you your strategy. You and your team must pick your strategy based on the goals set in Step 1. Unless you are in the midst of a rapidly moving disaster, pick a strategy focused on winning at your core. Make the foundation of your strategy a play to your core strengths. Once you have decided on this as your strategy, the data will tell you the best way to achieve it. From this point forward, your decisions must be based on this data-backed knowledge. The way to delineate your core is to apply 80/20 simplification. To identify what is working and what is not and separate the two, so that management can move resources from one to the other. This will rather rapidly position the company to earn the right to grow. Bear in mind that you are, in the first 100 days, prioritizing speed. The trade-off is perfection. So, the strategic draft you are creating in a handful of days is not meant to guide the company through the ages but merely to propel it to the next step, Step 3, in which the executive and operational leadership gives body to the strategy in the form of a structure for the company going forward, a structure to enable, facilitate, and accelerate optimum focus on the customers and products that will create profitable growth before the end of the first full year. The strategy that should emerge from Step 2 is a plan deliberately intended to be modified going forward as reality demands. Step 2, like Step 1 and Step 3, is intended to lift the organization to Step 4, an action plan. That will be the juiciest fruit of the first 100 days. Setting a goal in Step 1 required assessing the historical and current situation of the company with an eye toward the future. The formula that informs Step 1 informs all 4 steps outlined in Part 2. To make tomorrow different from today, do something different today. Now, to generate the major objectives and initiatives to achieve the goals set in Step 1, you must translate The insights gained from the situation assessment into a strategic framework to build a structure capable of strategically executing toward your goal. Step 2 in the PGOS generally unfolds in a series of meetings among members of the management team. They analyze the most recent data, comparing it to data gathered over the prior year, and they use the resulting framework to drive the decisions that will guide the strategic structure to be created in Step 3. In the framework of Step 2, the leadership team decides what exactly is needed, the objectives that must be achieved, to reach the company's long-term, 3 to 5-year, goal. Once the objectives are articulated, alignment of the organization on those objectives must be secured. Think of the strategy as the scaffold on which the business plan is drawn up and delivered to the organization. As it is hammered together in Step 2, the strategic framework lays out the objectives and initiatives required to realize them. The articulation of the strategy must answer 5 big questions. 1. What is needed to achieve breakthrough growth and/or performance? 2. What are the differentiators required to win? 3. What are the strategic opportunities or issues? Consider. For example, new product development, line extension, acquisitions, etc. 4. What are the highest value opportunities? Consider. 4. Example, the potential of new product lines and their affordability. 4. What are the highest value opportunities? Consider. 4. Example, the potential of new product lines and their affordability. 5. With questions 1 through 5 answered, ask and answer. What are the critical few initiatives to prioritize? Strategic alignment begins with data collection. In our digitized age, data has never been more abundant. Data is gathered and segmented into quadrants, as explained in Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Once the top 20% and remaining quadrants are identified, they are included in a quad, which consists of these 4 quadrants. 1. The quadrant of a customer's matched up with the A products they buy is placed in the upper right corner of the quad, which is often called the fort. 2. A customer/B product combinations are put into Quadrant 2, which is often called the necessary evil. 3. B customer/A product combinations are segmented into Quadrant 3, which is reserved for transactional business. 4. B customer/B product combinations are relegated to Quadrant 4, a segment that must either be priced up or exited from. Segmentation aims to show you how to appropriately treat each customer/product quad to allocate resources strategically. Here, strategically means treating the customers and products in each quadrant in ways that optimize profit margin. This begins by ensuring that the fort is optimally served by making it the prime focus of resources. Once Quadrant 1 is adequately allocated, the leadership team can strategically allocate the remaining available resources to Quadrants 2 and 3. In Quadrant 2, the objective is to sufficiently serve the A customers who buy B products. Sufficiently means devoting to these customers neither more nor less than a level of service that ensures you retain them and that the B products perform as well as B products can. This is why we call this quadrant the necessary evil. You must do all you can to retain your A customers and position the company to either convert customers up from the current B ranks or acquire even more, that is, new, A customers from the outside. For the B customers buying A products in Quadrant 3, the objective is to facilitate sales using minimal resources. Business in this segment is opportunistic rather than strategic. It should, therefore, be transactionally focused rather than relationship focused. Use digital technology to handle these sales online. Through machines and software rather than human employee interaction. Finally, customers and products in the bottom right quadrant 4, must be treated with a combination of price increases, resource reduction, and sales restrictions, such as requiring minimum purchases, online sales only, credit/debit, card purchases only, etc., to cut to the bone the cost of selling products that cannot be sufficiently priced up in these ways, or by simply raising the purchase price, must be eliminated. You cannot afford to invest resources and other overhead in products that don't make a profit. If they don't make money, they lose money, meaning they are killing you. You will lose customers when you drop these products, but those customers are killing you, so your company benefits from their departure. Handling quad 4 gives some managers qualms of conscience. They may feel that treating one set of customers differently from another is unfair. This is not true. While the treatment is unequal, it is not unfair. The treatment is appropriately unequal because a customer is quantitatively different from a B customer. That is, the two are not equals, not as customers, anyway, and since your treatment of them is not as people but as customers, treating them unequally is not the same as treating them unfairly. To treat a productive customer as a non-productive customer would certainly be unfair, however, to your best customers and your company. Having segmented customers and products and then assembled the individual quadrants into quads, the team must dive deeper to analyze the company's portfolio as a segmented profit and loss (P&L) statement. For example, say your analysis reaches these conclusions about the four quadrants. Quadrant 1, 64% of total revenue, 200% of total profit. Quadrant 2, 16% of total revenue, break-even profit. Quadrant 3, 16% of total revenue, 20% of total profit. Quadrant 4, 4% of total revenue, a minus 120% loss. It is killing you. For 80/20ths, profit is calculated as profit, plus, and loss, dash. In business, as in arithmetic, negative numbers are just as real as positive numbers. So, Quadrant 1 and Quadrant 3 produce 220% of the company's profit. But Quadrant 2 is a wash, breaking even with zero profit and zero loss, and Quadrant 4 is responsible for a negative profit, a loss, of minus 120%. The company portrayed here is a four-cylinder automobile putting along on just one cylinder, Quadrant 1, with two quadrants 2 and 3, barely pulling their weight, and 1, Quadrant 4, representing a real drag. The deeper dive analysis needs to sort actual product categories, or even SKUs, into each quadrant so that the performance of the company's portfolio may be critically assessed at a granular level. This leads to a more meaningful discussion aimed at formulating an 80/20 charter which answers the question, what products/product categories are we going to retain to create an optimal portfolio? In other words, on what exactly will we focus? Your executive leadership team and managers probably will not be able to make a complete analysis in the first 100 days. No matter what, get enough data and sufficient analysis to chart general trends. This will be sufficient to make good decisions on which to base good actions. Once you implement the strategy through action, you will produce measurable results that will guide you over the next full year in modifying your business and action plans. As the Latin writer Publius Cyrus observed in the 1st century BC, it is a bad plan that admits no modification. Cross-functional execution. From strategic alignment, the team moves to cross-functional execution. This requires the application of two priorities: simplification and focused sales growth. Both operate on the 80-20 principle. Essentially, the task is to devise ways to optimally allocate approximately 80% of your resources to Quadrant 1. The obvious place to draw additional human resources to service that top quadrant is Quadrant 4, where these resources are disproportionately squandered in futile and costly service to low-performing customers and products. In addition, you will want to do all you can to reduce friction and increase efficiency throughout the organization. For example, formulate the Terms and Service Level Agreement, SLA, for each quadrant, such that you always serve Quadrant 1 most intensively. Align all value streams to Quadrant 1. Apply Lean, see Chapter 13, and other efficiency and continuous improvement standards to all operations and processes. Simplify your stable of vendors, consolidating them and reducing their number so that you can secure volume. Pricing. Improve inventory management with such practices as just-in-time, JIT, and the like. Leverage your spending with strategic discipline. These actions will lower operating costs and overhead in ways that can be expected to produce a gain in profitable shares. Creating focused sales growth requires aligning your go-to-market strategy with the quadrants. Quadrant 1 demands, and must receive, the most resource-intensive strategy, including, for example, consultative selling and such value-adding services as installation and calibration. Properly focusing the growth, that is, the profitability, of sales almost invariably requires simplification of product lines, concentrating on A lines that contribute to the high-performing 80s. Pricing should be strategic, with levels of customers, minimum order levels, automatic reorders, and the like influencing the determination of what prices are offered to which customers. Quadrant terms and SLAs must always favor Quadrant 1, with growth initiatives focused on 80s products and 80s customers. The actions taken in the name of focused sales growth should all aim to achieve market share gain and leverage prices to create profitable organic growth. Once this is secured, the 80-20 framework can be applied to growth outside the organic bounds. This includes investment in geographic expansion and product line expansion. Prioritize sure things and worthwhile wins. The 80-20 principle can determine product/customer segments with the clearest path to success. This is not to be confused with going after low-hanging fruit. Rather, to continue the fruit metaphor, it is all about identifying those products in the portfolio and those customers in the whole customer base who possess sufficient juice to make the squeeze worthwhile. It is good to win anytime, but it is always best to win early. This builds both momentum and confidence. One of the companies I lead consists of 4 component groups. Let's call them ABC, DEF, GHI, and JKL. We determined which of these groups had the clearest path to success. ABC, which supplies a commodity as a service, possessed many of the focused qualities that gave it the best path to success when we studied it. B. DEF was hobbled by an entrenched, administrative state and many priorities. There was work yet to be done to fix it. C. GHI had too many priorities and may have been afflicted with an inefficient but entrenched administrative state. Again, there is work to be done here. D. JKL was well run but selling into a mature market with A visible horizon. This one was a candidate for possible closure or inclusion, at a simplified level, in another unit. It was apparent that ABC demanded the highest priority attention, not because it was doing poorly, the contrary was the case, but because it was an 80s performer and thus a source of significant profit that was there for the taking and growing. Key ratios. A common way to determine which company or component has the clearest path to success is to analyze key ratios. Typical key ratios to look at include working capital ratio, dividing current assets by current liabilities reveals how capable a company is of meeting current financial obligations. Price earnings, P/E, ratio, dividing current stock price by earnings per share yields the price investors pay for $1 of a company's profit. Return on assets, dividing net income by total assets reveals what percentage of profit a company earns versus its available resources. Return on equity, dividing net income by shareholders' equity indicates how efficiently management uses investors' capital. Useful output. As applied to creating the strategy preparatory to building the structure, Step 3, and launching the action plan, Step 4, the output of the 80-20 framework after Step 2 should end with a clear summary, based on an 80-20 analysis, of where the organization will compete, how it will compete, what capabilities are required to compete, and why the organization will win. The results of the analysis must be evaluated in the context of the goal. The numbers required to turn the company around and earn the right to grow, the current mission and vision of the company, and the historical data that indicates prior performance trends. The output of Step 2 must specify the recommended strategic imperatives and priorities. Recognizing that the work of the first 100 days is to provide a course of action subject to modification and correction, that is, make progress, not achieve perfection. Each priority and imperative should be defined with specific reference to rationale and scoping and any available discussion of value at risk versus value creation potential. A good rule of thumb for the output of Step 2 is to relate each strategic priority to 3 to 5 strategic initiatives aimed at all or any of the following: strengthening the core, corresponding to the fort, improving market attractiveness, and improving competitive position.